Figuring out a way to center happiness in your life is way more important than whatever kind of lofty ambitions you spend your days agonizing over. Because ultimately, and we could talk about what happiness means, what it looks like, and how I personally define it, but ultimately, right, the person you are today on some level is living the life of a past you's dreams, even childish ones of, oh, I just can't wait to be older, right? So many kids feel that way. I just can't wait to be older. You're older, right? So you're not giving yourself time to kind of celebrate that. And beyond that, whatever lofty ambitions you're pursuing or goals, even if they're not that lofty and they're fairly quote unquote realistic or whatever it is, the things that you're chasing, once you get there, you will keep running, right? I think I've said this maybe in recent episodes. It's not like once you get something that you want, you die and you want nothing else. You want other things, right? You keep pushing yourself, whether it's from a like pursuit of success perspective or whether it's just like I saw a really cute purse online. Once you get that purse, it's not like you'll never want another purse ever, right? Everything that you own, you've ever bought for yourself is probably something you were so excited to have at one point. Whether it was something you got secondhand or were gifted or whatever it is, right? But assuming you were in kind of a wealthy enough position to buy something for yourself or acquire something for yourself at any price point, at the time that you purchased it, you were really excited about that purchase, but now it's just another thing in your arsenal of things because, like I said, you will continue to want, you will always continue to desire. So what's more important than, of course, you need to define the goals you want, make sure they're aligned to you and not just things you're chasing after because people told you to. We talk a lot about that a lot in this podcast as well. But today I wanted to encourage also focusing on making peace and happiness a central through line in your day-to-day life because it actually amplifies every other pursuit that you take on. Coming from a place of contentment instead of a place of desperation, coming from a place of gratitude instead of bitterness or spite. That kind of underthread of like joy will propel you into spaces, into finding your people, into opportunities that will ultimately serve you in an incredible way. And even if you might still access them without having that kind of inner stability, even if you would still access those experiences, you won't get to enjoy them the same way. So then at what cost, right? Like at what cost? And I think for me, I can, speak a bit more to my experience and how this connects to this idea, because for me, I grew up always being an extremely happy and optimistic kid. And I was rarely sad. I definitely, reflecting back, had like extremely raging ADHD. But for the most part, I was a very happy kid and I had a happy childhood. And when I was in college, I got into Harvard, and when I didn't really think about universities until it was kind of time to think about them because, the college counselor at our school was like, okay, what about colleges? And I was like, oh, I have no idea what's going on, and so she was really pivotal in guiding me and all of those things. But of course, once it was on my radar to care about, it was something that I cared about. And I remember being really worried because I was like, I feel like people in my life will be really disappointed if this doesn't work out, even more than I would. Like, I remember my brother being he was really hopeful about, me getting into good school and all of that stuff. And I remember, I think I have like a journal entry from like an art class that forced us to journal of me being like, I'm really worried about disappointing my brother because I'm not really that worried about disappointing myself. But anyways, once I got to college, right, effectively the experience I was living was a culmination of things that I'd worked really hard towards, right? So obviously getting into the school was something I prayed hard for. I was, on the athletics team, which was great for me because the girls on the team were so capable. So I was really happy that I was able to walk on and I didn't feel alienated from that. I was in, good shape, like physically. I as insecure, I feel like, as I was when I was in college and all of those things. And even beyond any insecurities, because I think everyone has their insecurities. And I wouldn't actually say I was an insecure person. I just had insecurities, but I still came across outwardly as confident. But college was really fun because I got to express myself. I had so much freedom. Like, I just remember, like, when I was in high school and just a kid in general, I just was like so eager to get out into the world and have a social life. Like, because I lived a very sheltered experience. I never really got to see friends or go to parties or have any of those kinds of experiences. So when I was in college, it was like, I'm having a ball, right? Like, I'm at the school that I wanted to go to. I'm on a sports team that I wanted to be on. I'm making a ton of friends. I can stay up late whenever I want. Like, I would stay up late in high school, but only to study. Like, I can go out late if I feel like it. I can do stuff with people whenever I feel like it, blah, blah, blah. But I spent basically all of college, like, extremely, extremely, extremely depressed. So it's funny to even reflect back. I'm also the kind of person that, like, forgets everything. So I remember too, when I was depressed, like, I would write in my, like, notes app in my phone. And maybe if I read that note back some months later, I would read it back, I think, after getting medicated for stuff. And I would read the notes back and I'd be like, bitch, why did you think you weren't actually depressed? These notes are horrific. Like, are you okay? This is not normal thought patterns. But anyways, when I say, like, at what cost, I mean that in a lot of ways, I felt like I was living like the high achieving academic students, like student athletes, dream kind of. And even living my own dream in the sense of I have so much freedom and all of those things, like I said. And even then, because my mind at the time was genuinely a battlefield for me that I had not conquered, and it took a long time for me to get under control, that experience will always be tainted. The way I moved through that space will always be tainted. So, and I was definitely one of those people. I always tell people, and I probably said on this podcast, I apologize because I feel like I probably repeat my same life stories over and over again when they're, like, pertinent to what I want to say, just to make sure you guys know that the shit I tell you is, like, I lived it, but I apologize if it gets repetitive. But yeah, like, I would say I was probably one of those, like, textbook, is the actor's name Robin Williams? I don't know if I'm getting the actor's name right, but one of those textbook examples of, like, if I hadn't survived my, like, college experience, I would have been like a textbook, oh, we never saw it coming type of person. I wouldn't have in the same way, because I was someone that was, like, very outwardly vocal and, like, not filled with shame around dealing with mental struggles. So people knew because I told them that I was depressed. But in terms of my actual behavior, if you hadn't heard me talk about it, or you weren't one of my friends that I would talk about it with, or, maybe you didn't watch me on social media when I talk about mental health stuff, if you just met me on a normal day, you would literally never guess. Like, you would just not think that I was depressed. And even I was aware of it. It was this weird thing where, like, if I was around other people, maybe from, like, going to sports practices or whatever it is, or, like, going for meals, like, I was just always, for the most part, I think until the end, things started to really trend downwards. But for the most part, if you were seeing and interacting with me, I was really, really cheerful. So if I wasn't open about the fact that I had those struggles, I would not have been someone that you could have, like, been able to tell. And if I hadn't have survived, like, it would have been kind of an open shut textbook case of, like, we didn't see it coming. She was always smiling and happy and telling jokes and all of this stuff, right? And so all this to say, having that experience really tainted how I showed up at school. And I know that I was very withdrawn, and I'm very grateful because I still think I got a lot out of my experience at Harvard. And I also feel like I was very lucky to go to that particular school because it's a very forgiving environment for people going through my kind of experience. Like, it's both forgiving and unforgiving at the same time, but the school does a lot to shield itself that ends up kind of also shielding students. But looking back, as much as I'm happy with what came out of that, I know that I was very withdrawn. I spent way too much time in my room, like basically all of my time in my room. I spent basically all of my time sleeping. Yes, I would think of myself as a social person, but I wasn't like that intentionally social. Like I wouldn't really join organizations. Like I wasn't really exposing myself to everything that the school had to offer because I just wasn't in the right kind of mental state to even put out that kind of energy. And even then, luckily, because I have like happy, good vibes when the time comes, and that would be rewarded in its own way. There wasn't even that much of an opportunity for that to be exposed because, again, I was so depressed and withdrawn. And so taking that out of the example of, depression and all of this stuff, and going back to what I was saying about the importance of centering the practice of joy in your life, it's because your mind goes with you. Like you take your mind with you through every season of life. And your mind, and the research backs this, it's the neuroplasticity, your mind can evolve, it can be trained, it's like a muscle. So your mind is the one thing that will come with you in every stage of life. And if you are chasing all of these goals and ambitions and whatever, and thinking of happiness as a destination or byproduct of your success and ability to cross those things off of your checklist, unfortunately, babe, when you get there and you check it off, your mind will be there too. And unless you've been actively honing it to see the world a certain way, or honing it to filter your experiences for the best instead of for the worst, unless you've trained your muscle of your mind to be happy, when you get there and check that thing off the list, your mind will still be there the same way it was 10 years ago when you didn't have that thing, or 1 year ago when you didn't have that thing you wanted, right? So you're so excited for your Uber Eats order to show up. It shows up, you eat it, the thrill is gone, your mind is still there. The same mind that you had an hour ago before the food came, before you ordered the food, whatever, is the mind you're still there with. So everything will be fleeting if you tie your happiness to external experiences. So you have to train the muscle of joy. So then the question is, what is happiness? What does it mean to kind of train this muscle, and what am I talking about? I saw this in a book recently. E plus R equals O, right? Event plus response equals outcome. And I guess, but beyond just like the outcome of like a decision or whatever it is, you could also think of the outcome as like the consequence on your kind of nervous system, or how you absorb a situation. So if an event happens to you and your response coming from your kind of mind frame that's not primed for joy or gratitude or whatever, or learning or grace, responds to said event, the outcome is misery. But if you train the muscle to interrupt a bad response and replace it with a good one, the outcome could be completely different. So now let's think of like a good example. Okay, something that I have really wired myself to believe is that everything always works out for me. Everything always works out for me. Everything always works out for me. I've probably talked about what I'm about to say to you in other ways throughout the podcast, but everything always works out for me. So a good example of this is, if I genuinely believe that everything always works out for me, and I'm faced with a situation that is disappointing, maybe I applied for something and I didn't get it, just to like make an example. But I know that everything always works out for me. So a year from now, I'm going to have an amazing day or an amazing outcome. And it's going to be directly because this thing rejected me. So I could be upset that today I got rejected. Or I could skip to enjoying the feeling of Abby a year from now, who's going to be so glad this thing didn't work out so that that thing could work out, because everything always works out for me. So I'm basically skipping steps and allowing myself to continue to be, happy. So that's like one example of a way that now I've trained the muscle of my mind to find a way for me to embody joy right now. So I don't put my joy on hold. I don't say, oh my gosh, like this thing rejected me and I really wanted it and I'm so disappointed and that means I'm not good enough. That means X, Y, and Z and all of these things about me, because it doesn't have to mean all of those things. And even if all of those things are true, who gives a shit? Because the only way I can get the thing I want is if this thing rejects me today. So I'm so glad this thing rejected me. On to the next thing. I also saw this TikTok recently, and I'm probably not going to explain it perfectly, what the situation was, but basically this woman was saying how it's great to be rejected from things because like we phrase it as rejection and then that makes it sound bad, but I'm gonna kind of like reframe what she said because I don't remember her perfect example. But think about it this way, right? If you're supposed to enter a mansion or whatever down the road, okay, and you get to a house that's a few doors down from the mansion, and the first house that you enter becomes your house, right? But you're slotted to enter a mansion. This is actually completely deviating from what that person said, but this is how my mind works. So this is what we're going with, right? You're slotted to enter a mansion and you go down the road and you come across like a shack or just like a very small, also there's something wrong with that, but whatever, you know what I mean? You just come across like a very small dwelling space. It's not really your style. It's not really your taste. And maybe it's the opposite way. Like maybe there's a preference and you don't like big gaudy mansions and whatever it is, but whatever. You have two dwelling homes down the street and whatever home you walk into first is yours. But in the process of getting to the one that's slotted for you, you encounter one that's not meant to be yours and you knock on the door and it doesn't open. And then you're pulling on the doorknob, ringing the doorbell, making a bunch of noise, getting upset because the door wouldn't open because you think, oh, and I won't say shack even, that you think, oh, this is such a nice house. This is supposed to be my house. They told me this was my house, right? Because you went looking for your house. You think this is your house. You're so excited. But the door will not open. The windows don't open. You can't break in. It's impenetrable. If you managed to open the door and get in and that became your house, would you be happy about it? If you later found out that 3 doors down, there was a mansion that had your name on it and you were so obsessed with getting into the thing that was wrong for you, that now you have to live there and the big mansion down the street isn't yours, you wouldn't be happy about it, right? So even if you want to say, okay, I'm going to be upset, like you want that door to be closed, right? In that instance, you want that rejection. So you should actually be eager to be rejected because it gets you one step closer to the thing that's actually right for you. So if that door stays closed firmly, yeah, it sucks because you thought you had arrived and you hadn't arrived, but keep going, keep going, keep going. Oh, just around the corner, this is my house. This is a way better house. So just like that example I gave you of a year from now, oh, I'm going to be so happy. This is my way better house than the house I would have got a year ago. I'm just not going to be upset right now. I flex the muscle. I know that I can be happy now in advance of what is coming later because this has taught me something. This has redirected me. This has even protected me from an outcome that I actually don't want. Other ways to kind of interrupt thought patterns that are going to bring you misery. Something that I notice a lot is that, and I think I've made an episode about this as well, people reserve happiness for highlight moments and they kind of assume that their day-to-day moments should be terrible. And I saw this on TikTok recently. I see everything on TikTok. Everything I've ever learned is on TikTok. It's like disgraceful. I should pretend like I read it from like a news article. But no, the internet is such a powerful place. People complain about internet consumption and stuff, and it's like, okay, what are you consuming? Because I feel like I feel like my life has been materially changed by the things I see on social media. Because I be strict as hell. I run a strict program about the media I consume. Everybody is not interested, muted, blocked, unless it's useful. But anyways, yeah, I saw this TikTok, and it was basically people talking about, in the comment section especially, like people, because I don't remember what the main video was about, but basically people were discussing how they hate their job, they dread going into work, blah, blah, blah. But once they get there, they spend the whole day kikiing with their coworkers. Like they know. And they were in the comment section kind of laughing at this like juxtaposition, but I thought it was so funny because I'm like, you have told yourself that working is a miserable thing that you hate. And you're so like identified with that narrative that even though you actually have fun at work, that's not what you think about when you think of work. So when you go to work, most people become friends with the people that they see at work because you spend so much of your life with the people you see at work, right? And you spend a lot of the workday. That's why I've always loved like going into offices because I love to chat with people. I'm someone that distracts people, so I really should be left all the way the hell alone when I'm working if anything is going to get done. But I've always loved going into work because I'm like, yay, I get to see people. I love getting dressed. Like I'm going to get dressed even if I stay home, but like I love getting dressed, going out, seeing people, laughing with people, whatever it is in any context, right? And so it was just funny to see that because it's work, it's a weekday, it's whatever, people are so ready to complain, ready to clock out of work. Oh my goodness, I can't wait for this day to end, blah, blah, blah. Dreading Mondays, dreading every day of the week they have to come in, knowing damn well that there are like, core hours and memories made on the clock that are genuinely enjoyable. So why is it that when they think about their job, they don't consider that part? They just consider, oh, I just don't want to be here. So then they're rushing home to leave their job where they were social and having a good time and all of these things, rushing home to sit in the house and probably overconsume things or doom scroll, because I don't think everyone is, even with me, like there is stuff on the internet that's not pleasant that you will encounter. So you're rushing home to doom scroll, probably be isolated or deal with the stresses of home life, because as a woman especially, there's going to be a lot of them, especially if you're like partnered with a man as well or have kids. So you're rushing home just to get off the clock. And there's no acknowledgement for the fact that there are portions of being on the clock that are genuinely enjoyable. And again, this just goes back to this idea of making joy and happiness central to like your daily behavior and the behaviors that you do most of the time, because your brain comes with you. So those very same people, I would love for them to have that click of, why, instead of dreading my job, let me focus on the fact that I spend so much of my day with people that I genuinely like. I spend a lot of time laughing, making jokes, or just having encounters with people. Maybe you have a little work crush, or focusing on how the work is valuable. Like I think I saw something, my dad was telling me how somebody who was a janitor, I think at NASA, or like a janitor at something related to like that latest big space project, was saying like, my job, sent people to whatever the space project was, right? Like my job sent people into space because yes, like as a sanitation worker, your work is important to make sure people don't get sick, because by cleaning the toilets and cleaning the spaces, you're making sure these germs aren't being transmitted. You're protecting the lives of the astronauts and the team members that are doing these ultra sensitive calculations. And so, yeah, your work is important and valuable and impactful. So when you look at it that way, there's things that you can take pride in and be happy about and can add some contentment to your everyday moments. But if you were to look at it in the way that maybe other people might demean certain roles, then it's like, okay, it's going to feel miserable and it's going to suck, but it's the same life. So how is it that that same life can be experienced in two different ways? It's all about the meaning that you inject into it. And again, that's from your mind, and that's why you have to train your mind. Something I care a lot about anytime I'm working is, maybe part of this is like, okay, girl, why can you not do things without stimulation? But this is the last piece of advice that I'll give. I remember working in finance, and this is still a habit I have now, and it would be the middle of the night and I would be with my coworkers, and I just remember I would be like in my zone. Like I would have music playing. Usually like maybe I'm in an area where not that many people are around. I'll be singing to Beyonce in the middle of the night or whatever it is, or just like I'm literally having a dance party while I'm like tip-tapping at my laptop. And then every now and then I'll take breaks. I'll walk around the office, like cubicles, like much further away. And it would be so sad because I would like come across other interns that were just like so overwhelmed, not happy to be there, angry that they're not sleeping, angry that they still have work to do, angry that they still have deadlines to meet. And just like they couldn't accept the fact that they were there. Like that's the core thing causing the pain, because I'm also here, right? We're both here together. We're both doing some type of work in different fonts, right? So if I can be here and still be happy, what is it that's preventing you from having that same experience? And of course, there's so many different factors to that, but part of it is not being able to accept your circumstances, and the resistance to your circumstances will also create a misery by itself, right? So I've already accepted that this is what I'm doing for the evening. So now all I can do is try to enhance that experience. And I do that by playing fun, energetic music. In the past, even on when I used to work from home, I used to like FaceTime friends and like talk to friends on the phone while I was working. Maybe I'll listen to a podcast or watch a TV show while I'm working. Like I've already accepted that I'm working anyway. So how can I make my work fun? whether the work itself is interesting or not, I can then supplement it with other things that are interesting. And then it doesn't feel like it has to be my work or something I enjoy. It can be right? But if you have resistance, and the reason I'm mentioning the whole resistance thing is because that makes it easier to apply to your own life, is if you have resistance to just accepting what's happening to you, that resistance in and of itself is your problem beyond the problem itself. Because once you've accepted that something has happened to you and that's just the way that it is, then you can kind of move on, right? Either it's something that you should think about because there's a solution you can do, so you should think about putting that solution into effect, or it's something that you really can't do anything about, so it's better maybe not to ruminate. I now, when I give advice, think a lot about the idea of grief and how do the things I say apply to grief. And I saw this really beautiful thing recently on social media as well, and it was someone basically saying that grief is like the receipt of love. Like, grief is the evidence of the fact that you experienced love for another person, because you can't grieve someone that you don't care about, right? So the bigger, not even the bigger the grief, but like the grief itself is a consequence of the fact that you love someone deeply. And would you rather not have that grief at all? Because that would mean that you wouldn't have got to experience the joy of knowing and caring and loving that person, right? And having that person impact you in any way. So I just thought that was like a beautiful way to kind of reframe grief, because it's still going to be extremely difficult, but it's like, okay, well, you can have someone magically remove the grief, but they're going to have to magically also remove the person or your experience of that person. So it's just that, natural consequence. It doesn't make it fun, not doesn't even necessarily make it easier, but I think it also helps with, okay, when you are moving throughout your day and you're thinking about this person, maybe try to think about the love you shared, reflect on the memories, and reflect on the impact that person had on you and how you can bring that into your day, right? Instead of what's out of your control, which is the fact that, they're not right in front of you anymore, at least not in the physical realm. But yeah, like I was saying, right, your resistance to what's right in front of you is what causes the most pain. So once you can accept your circumstances, you can take those next steps. And those next steps are either, okay, this is a problem I can fix. Let me think about how to fix it. Oh, I don't want to think about how to fix it right now, or I can't. Okay, time to go to sleep. This is something my dad does extremely well, because being an entrepreneur does not come without its stresses. And when he first started his most recent business, there would be times that, you just go through the natural ups and downs and waves of putting together a business. And for him, like, if he couldn't do something about the problem at hand, he would just go to sleep. And God would provide the answer in the morning. And it would be like genuinely ground-breaking things and elements that are completely out of his control that could stop operations, like just issues like that when something is new. And he would just be like, okay, it's in God's hands now. What am I going to do? So he's really great at keeping, I think, his cortisol levels down in that way, because what are you going to do about it? And it's funny because other members of my family are not like that, and they're just like up all night freaking out. And he's like, well, I can't do anything about it, so why affect my sleep, right? So that's the way you kind of bring in the practice of keeping peace and just like a stable, even keel mood into your everyday life. Because when he becomes successful as well, that's going to come with its own pressures, but he's going to have the mind he has now that's able to deal with those kinds of experiences. Yeah. Anyways, so those are some of the tangible pieces of advice I'd have around happiness. And I'm sure you have thoughts of your own about ways to make your day more enjoyable for you. Invite more connection, invite more love. Because when you're gone, people are probably not going to fix it. Not probably. People aren't going to fixate on all of the incredible talents you have or all of the incredible, achievements that you've checked off of your list. They're going to think about how you made them feel, how they made you feel. Just like they're going to think about the connection. They're going to think about the relationship. And so centering those things, centering joy and connection and community and all of these things, they sit outside of what we prioritize as maybe typical high achievers. It sits outside of that to-do list, but it's so important because it's what people actually care about. And a good way to guide your thoughts on this is to maybe look up, I think there's this, I don't know if it was a book or an article from years ago about what do people like in retirement homes who are older, what do they regret the most once they're at their age, or what do they kind of think about as the most important things to them that they wish they spent more time on? And you'll find that 99% of the time it's not work. So yes, the work you're doing is important. Yes, your dreams are important. The things you want to achieve are important because they're important to you. That's what makes them important. But your mind comes with you at every phase of life, so practice making it a fun place to be. Thank you for thinking out loud with me on Live Lumani. My name is Abia Mudo, and I hope you follow the podcast. And I will speak to you next time. Love you guys so much.